Good evening. Actually, I don't like mic, and my voice is very strong. I'll try to talk without mic. Yeah. I mean, if in the back you can hear me, and then we'll continue without mic. No? Okay. Okay.
Try.
I'll try. It's a pleasure for me to present my talk today in this place about the Korean book treasures in Kazakhstan. In the National Library of Kazakhstan. And I entitled my paper as Legends and Trust. I'm trying to tell what legends are around this collection of books, and then why they are just legends, and where's the trust. And it was given to me 15 minutes. I tried to keep time. And I would like then to hear your suggestion, and feedback is very important for me. Yeah, and of course, if I get questions, it will be wonderful. So, okay, let's roll, please. Is working?
This one.
Yes. Okay. Legend one is that the Koreans arrived to Central Asia in Kazakhstan in 1937 because they were deported by Stalin regime. But it's a historical fact that the first Koreans appeared in Central Asia in pre-revolutionary period during the Russian Empire. So, according to the first census of Russian Empire, 1897, there were a few dozens of Koreans registered in the territory of recent post-Soviet Central Asia. And they were also registered in first all-Union Soviet Center of Population, Census of Population, 1926. In 3 oblasts of the recent Kazakhstan. In the picture you see there's a man who was at that time exiled to Kazakhstan from far east. He has been imprisoned in Kazakhstan because he was against the Japanese Empire and against the Japanese colonial rule in Korea. Some of them, they fled from Korea to Russian Far East, and then from Russian Far East. He was arrested actually in Vladivostok, and then he was sent to Kazakhstan. And then there is also the fact that the first Korean kolkhoz or collective farm, Kazakh rice, was established in 1929. Because at the end of 90s, the Soviet government decided to develop the rice paddies in Central Asia, and especially in Kazakhstan. And in south in Kazakhstan, there are very good conditions. I mean, the weather, the water, and the climate for rice agriculture. And so in 1929, almost 200 Koreans from Far East, they were relocated by Soviet government, paid by Soviet government, and they established this kolkhoz Kazakh rice. And there was also the plan to establish several collective farms, not only in Kazakhstan, but also in neighboring Uzbekistan, but the plan was failed. I don't know exactly the reason, but maybe that was because of the lack of the budget. Yeah. And legend one, that is connected directly to the topic of our lecture, is that the Korean immigrants to Russia have been poor and illiterate peasants who lived in Korean villages in maritime region of Far East. Yes, I can say yes. The majority of immigrants were peasants, but if you look at this picture, that is a Vladivostok railway station. If you see the Koreans, how they are clothed, yeah, and we can imagine they are not just poor people. Or this picture, they are, what's wrong? Okay, these young ladies, this is a picture made at the end of 19th century in Vladivostok, and of course they are from wealthy families. And of course they are also educated women. Or this a very famous picture of Korean school. In the Russian Far East, before the deportation, there were 300 Korean schools. And also in the pre-revolutionary period, there were hundreds of Korean schools. There were schools also established by Russian government, by local Korean communities, and also by Russian church as a missionary schools. Even the elder people, seniors, they studied also Russian language, and this picture was made in Perm. That is quite far from Far East. That is in Ural region, and the people are just learning and studying. This was pre-revolution. It means that Korean which arrived to Russia and they lived in Russia. Part of them, they lived in Russian towns such as Vladivostok, Khabarovsk, and other small towns, of course also in Siberian towns, in big Siberian towns too. And they were literate, and they used to read books, and they took also with them the books. And legend 2 is that Stalin deported 1937 entire Korean population from Far East to kill them. If you see the map, that is, you see all other ethnic minorities. They were deported from the west to the east, means to Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and Siberia, the Altai and Ural. Only Koreans were deported from the east to the west. Because Koreans were accused to be the spies of the Japanese Empire, and then they are all unreliable nationalities, which they are deported. Yeah. Of course, the Koreans were the first ethnic group deported by Stalin regime. And I studied a lot of archival documents, and I was so surprised how technically it was well organized. This relocation of 200,000 Koreans from Far East to Central Asia. There was a plan, and the plan was made actually earlier, before Stalin regime. It means in the late 19th century. The Russian Imperial government already wanted, to remove the Korean, not only Korean, Asians, yeah, the yellow peril, so-called yellow peril. There were Chinese, Japanese, and Koreans, which were majority in the border region. Yeah. It means, of course, Stalin regime didn't want to kill them, wanted to relocate, And there are many reasons which I mentioned. It's internal, external, political, economical, national culture, and so on. I can explain later which are, but officially the reason was the espionage of Korean population, or some of Koreans. Yeah. And legend 4 is that the director, newly appointed director of the Korean Institute, Mr. Rifkin, ordered to burn the old Korean books arrived from Far East to Kazakhstan for heating the building of the Korean Institute in Kzyl-Orda. But there was no documentary confirmation that director, order of director of this institute to burn Korean books. And then there are two Koreans. One is Park Il, a senior Korean scholar, and the second is Han Jin, who is a writer. So Park Il told to Han Jin this story, and Han Jin described this story in his novel. And the novel is entitled "The Fear," or in Russian "Strach," was published in several books, collection of short stories of Soviet Korean writers. And according to Park Il Han Jin, some of books were taken out of the furnace from the oven, and they had already been partially spoiled by the fire. But among all these Korean books that were sent to Almaty library from Kzyl-Orda, no one has any sign of fire. I have the picture of every one of the book of this collection, and yeah, we spent. I'll tell later about our project on these books. So, in addition, about 50 old Korean books from the same collection are still soundly stored in the Library of Kzyl-Orda State University. I have seen these books, and then there's a question: if the book were for burning, why these books are still in Kzyl-Orda, not sent to Almaty? That's the National Library of Kazakhstan, and this library holds a significant collection of the books in Korean, and there are numerous legends, as I mentioned. Yeah? This is a legend that the good Korean teacher, Mr. Lee, and a bad Russian stalker. That is a legend that this teacher, Mr. Lee, Sunday morning, he awoke and he went, he doesn't know what was the reason, but he went to the institute. And then he had seen that this stalker, Russian drunk stalker, is burning the books, these old Korean books. And he asked it, what are you doing? They are, that's treasures. And he said, no, there was the order of the director, and we have to heat the building. And there's a cold winter and so on. Yeah? And then this teacher Lee went to the market, and then he came with the empty boxes, and then he filled all the boxes with the books and went to the station. And from the station, he sent these books to Almaty from Kzyl-Orda. That's another town. Yeah, that is a legend. But what is interesting? I checked the list of the staff of this institute in 1937 till the 60s. And there is no teacher. There are teachers with Lee, but not with this name. And then there was not a Russian stalker's name. There was, the stalker was a Kazakh name. And it's very unclear. Legend 6 is the Stalin regime was intending to eliminate Korean culture and language. It is, 1937, all Korean schools were transformed to the this standard Soviet school. The teaching was in Russian. All textbooks were eliminated from the libraries and also from the school. But at the same time, Soviet government supported, budgeted, spent a lot of money for publishing Korean newspaper. At that time, until the collapse of the Soviet Union, this newspaper was for all Soviet Union. Can you imagine? The newspaper, 10,000 copies are printed in Almaty and then sent to all Soviet Union where Koreans are living. And then the staff of the newspaper was 70 people. 70 people was the staff. Yeah. For them, all of them, for example, the government gave apartment. When the staff came later from Tashkent to Almaty, because there was a lack of the Korean-speaking native correspondents, or from Sakhalin in the 70s, yeah. Or Korean theater. Korean theater was also relocated from Vladivostok to Kazakhstan, first to Kzyl-Orda, then later to Almaty. And still, the newspaper and Korean theater existing in Kazakhstan. Legend 7, the books in the collection are ancient and very rare. But, the preliminary assessment, actually it's final evaluation. I will tell later. Made by all researchers that there are no real rarities in it, though the existence of such numerous significant collection of all books outside of Korean, that the availability in Kazakhstan are facts of great importance in themselves. Legend 8, that the collection hasn't any precious Korean book. It's also a legend because in the collection we have many copies of encyclopedia Dongguk Munhon Bigo. This edition, old edition, this encyclopedia was published in 1770, the first edition, around 180 volumes. And there was many editions. The edition which have we in Almaty is one of the latest, but in Korea it is also this edition, but maybe not in not all volumes. Many volumes are lost. So in other collection too, they are missing. But in Almaty collection is quite a full edition. And legend 9 is that the collection remains unknown. This is a picture made 2006 and from National Research Institute of Cultural Heritage came a team. This team was working almost 3 weeks long in Almaty with the staff of the National Library. And the team checked all the books. So the leader of the team he was director. He was at that time director of this National Research Institute for Cultural Heritage, based in Hijab. Yeah, and then the senior young man, Mr. Mr. Lee Jong-sok, he was at that time, I don't know, I lost contact with him. He was one of the best experts in old Chinese characters. And the Professor Nam from Dongguk University. Dongguk University is in Daegu. Yeah, in Daegu. He's an expert in libraries, the library systems. Yeah. And the young Mr. Chong, he is also working. He was working for the National Research Institute. And also, there are not all of the local staff. And we were checking. Everyone has own, responsibilities in the project. I was doing unpacking, then photographing, and what I was interested especially in the title pages of the book, because the title pages of the book are all stamps, seals, signs, inscripts. Because I was interested in the history of origin of the collection, and so studying these title pages, I was able then reconstruct, preliminary this history. That's the nature of working in the library. And you can, if somebody will interested in this topic, so in the site of Research Institute for Cultural Heritage, there is also information, not only information on this project, but also this book. This is a catalog of the Almaty collection of all books. We compiled these books, and it is published. And this book is also in PDF file on the site. The download, you can free download the book. Yeah. Legend, so it means all the books are counted, descripted, and all seals and the books are studied. Yeah, and we can say that the collection is quite well known. Legend tell me that the collection will be returned to Vladivostok or to Korea. There were some, attempts to relocate something from Kazakhstan to Korea. For example, the remains of the national hero in the anti-Japanese struggle, General Hong-Bong-do, his grave is in Kzyl-Orda, but some of Korean first scholars and then also officials wanted to remove it to the national cemetery in Korea. But local Korean community and the local government of Kzyl-Orda were strongly against that. And also about this collection. But about this collection, not the Korean side, not Korean institution, but Vladivostok. It might be very interesting because, as you know, the State Far Eastern Archive was based in Tomsk, in Siberia, but then relocated to Vladivostok. But I don't think that it will be possible because the National Library of Kazakhstan will be strongly against that. Now about the origin of this Almaty collection. If you see, the first seals and stamps are Korean. It means the books were maybe donated also. Some of books were donated to the Korean officials, and there are also seals of Korean officials which visited maybe Vladivostok, or they presented these books to the guests from Russia in Korea. The second donators of this collection are Russian missionaries, militaries, tradesmen who were in Korea, and they bought the books. And first the books went to that is the first Russian seal. See, it's a seal of Imperial Oriental Institute in Vladivostok, established 1899. And then this collection from this university went to the Far Eastern Russian University, the same. And we have also, you know, not the seals, but they are like marks. The books are from private collection, from some Russian officials. And there are also the seals of private seals. For example, this of Korean owner of the shop, and he was also owner of the trade company. Then later I discovered in reference book of Vladivostok compiled by Matveyev this Korea was quite a good businessman who made a big trade between Russia and Korea. Yeah, and this is actually very interesting origin place of it. This is a YMC, and YMC has an office in Vladivostok. So I had in this collection are maybe a dozen of books with this stamp, this seal. It means why YMC collected this book? Who was in the YMC who collected this book? That's very interesting. And the most interesting is this one. This is a seal of a stamp of the Korean Library in Vladivostok. We know nothing about the existence of a library. Oh. So, what is with my time?
Lots of time.
Yeah?
25 minutes.
25 minutes, okay, I'm going to talk very fast. So then, sorry, I'm told that today, almost finishing this presentation, I lost it, and then in a very short time, I'll try to recover it. And I see that not everything is in the new, not in the new, in the restored presentation. Okay, it was told to me that the audience in today will know not much about the Koreans in Kazakhstan. So additionally, I will explain a bit about the Korean diaspora in Kazakhstan. And so, yeah, because I'm so surprised, because I checked the presentation before I went from stay, and now I see that it's just a half. Yeah. Without the images, it will be a bit, you know, boring to just to hear about the collection, and I would like to answer your question, but half of my time comes. I'll just show this is for them who is interested. Yeah, they are all books of the collection, and they, you see the title page. But because we have the catalog is now useless, actually, this just images. everything is okay. After collapse of the Soviet Union, Koreans were split in separate communities in Central Asia, in each of sovereign republic like Uzbekistan or Kazakhstan or Russian, and then these newly established countries, they choose own ways of further development, political, socio-economical, and in the first years, in each of countries there are different reforms. So and now the situation in each of republic is quite different. For example, Kazakhstan made big success in economic reforms, and now the market is there's a free market economy, and now Kazakhstan didn't get any ODA because the GDP per capita for last year was over $15,000. And of course, still in Kazakhstan too is in a transition period from old Soviet or communist regime to the democracy. But Kazakhstan made, compared to other republic, quite a long way from to the democracy. And that is the reason among the Korean communities living in Central Asia and also in Russian, we are looking at so-called divergent process. We are all the same in Soviet period, Soviet Koreans or Korea Saram. And now more and more we are feeling that we are becoming different. So because we are living in the different countries. And the Korean diasporas in Central Asia, they have to make choices in their strategies for the future. And these are choices like choice of the place of residence and migration. We were talking just an hour ago, having dinner, that there are many Uzbekistani Koreans in Seoul right now. Yeah, there are over 30,000 Uzbekistan Koreans in Seoul. That means almost every fifth Uzbekistani Koreans already migrated to Korea, and many of them they moved also to Russia, or Tajikistan Koreans, because of the two civil wars. The community disappeared. They are just refugees of the war. There were 12,000 Koreans in Tajikistan, and now just a couple of hundreds in the capital of the country, in Dushanbe, because the capital is under the control of the government, and also Russian army is supporting the regime in Tajikistan. In Kazakhstan, there's only one Central Asian country with increased Korean population. Yeah, we made in Kazakhstan too census of population. There's only one Central Asian republic which made these two. The Uzbekistan didn't make any census. And there are official records, and there are also an unofficial evaluation of the current number of Koreans. In Kazakhstan, it's quite different numbers also. choice of labor activities and the profession. Yeah, in Soviet time, initially Koreans were mainly in the agriculture, and then in the 60s, when after the Stalin death, when Koreans were able to move from collective farms to the towns, then the urbanization of Koreans was very fast, and then the level of education of Koreans increased very high. For example, according to the last Soviet census of population, 1989, in Kazakhstan, among 1,000 working people, there were 144 persons with a university or college education. Among Koreans, it was double higher. And so Koreans in the Soviet time, they were mostly, in intellectual spheres of activities, but there were among Koreans also many, famous sportsmen or people in art, literature. They're also in industrial production. But after the collapse of Soviet Union, when the economy in this former Central Asian republics also collapsed, and there were no more collective farms, then many of Koreans, not only Koreans, but other people too, they changed it to business. And recently, there are the majority of Korean males in Central Asia, also in Russia, they doing a small business. Yeah. And that the status of Koreans changed from like intellectual minority to doing business minority. A choice of ways of form of diasporic association. In the Soviet time, it was forbidden to organize the social organization or NPOs based on ethnic origin. But only with Gorbachev, perestroika, and glasnost, many minorities began to consolidate themselves. In Koreans were not exceptions, and so many associations were established where Korea lived. But initially there were two trends. There were ones that the association were, the majority of associations were supported by South Korean NGOs or by South Korean government. But North Korea tried also initially to impact this movement, and so it was established so-called ASOK association. It was pro-North. It's like in Japan, as you know, Chochanryun and Mindan. And in the 90s there were also some tension and even clashes between two associations. Because the North Korea opened the diplomatic relations were established by all former Soviet republics, both with South and North Korea. And the embassies were opened also in Almaty or Tashkent, in the capitals of Central Asian countries. But after 3 or 4 years, due difficulties and other reasons, the embassies were closed. Now in Central Asia, there is only one in Tashkent, the embassy. Yeah, but the association, they are not only just, general association. There are many special. For example, Women Association, Association of the Korean Scholars, Association of Korean Writers, Association of Korean Doctors, and so on and so on. And there are also associations and societies which are supported by South Korean government. For example, like this Council for the reunification of Korea. Or there is also so-called, the 독립 유공자 협회, or the Society of the descendants of the heroes of the national liberation movement of Korea. It's strongly supported by South Korean government, by twin ministerial. Yeah. Choice of identity and the cultural determinants. It's very interesting. I'll skip and we'll explain a bit detailed later. Choice of relationship with historical motherland. Yeah, it means initially when a small group of Koreans in Central Asia decided to have close relation to North Korea. Now this time is past. By historical motherland, some of Koreans in Central Asia, they decided that historical motherland is not Korea, not Korean Peninsula, but Russia. And so there is a trend of repatriating to Russia, but not to the Russian Far East. Initially, the immigration was to the Russian, to this region. But maybe because of the trauma of deportation, or also the local population in Russian Far East were against of the Korean relocation, yeah, or repatriation. Many of Koreans from Uzbekistan, and some also from Kyrgyzstan and Kazakhstan, they moved to the south of Russia. Maybe because in south of Russia there are better, chances for agriculture. Because these Koreans, for these Koreans, it would be very difficult to be concurrent with the local Russian population. So they decided to regain, the agricultural skills and make money with, agriculture. Okay, let's keep Korean language. I suppose it will be a language, a question about Korean language. Yeah. The official status in the Soviet Union was a native language of Koreans. And there is Korean language, it means the standard Korean language. And there is also a Korean language with a dialect, we call it Koryo-ma. And the dialect, it's quite rare. Our descendants are mostly from the province Hamgyong-pukto, and from very northern part, that's Yugip or Yukchin region. They were majority, but to Russian Far East immigrated Koreans also from other provinces, from south provinces too, and so with the time it was a mix of different dialects, or the dominating this Yukchin subdialect mixed with some other dialects of Korean languages. And now the Koreans celebrated last year 150 anniversary of the voluntary migration from Korea to Russia. And it means we are now the Korea-Sara, or Koreans in the CIS, the post-Soviet space. They are from 2nd to 6th generation. And only a few persons of the 2nd generation can understand and speak a little bit very, you know, easy conversation in our dialect. But the young generation has a good chance to learn standard Korean language because South Korean government is supporting. We have a center of a huge institution, center of education, and Korean department are established in several universities. In the Korean missionary church, we have a lot of them. They are teaching also Korean language, and then every young Korean can get a grant. There are many programs for not only for the Korean language education, but university for studies at the Korean universities. About my time?
5 more minutes.
5 more minutes. Okay, I'm finishing. About ceremonies on the holidays, we are still keeping and preserving the old Korean traditional customs. In the family, the 3 important life milestones is Hol, wedding, or Changchi, Sik, and Hwanga. Now in Korea, not more Hwanga, we are Ega. This Kohi. But we still, all Koreans, they celebrate Pega. We don't know what's Kohi. And we don't know, for example, what's Pegil. Never. Yeah. But Tol, it's every Korean child is a Tol. And Hansik Chusok, it's very traditional. Yeah. So we are visiting our ancestral graves and make these jewels, and the tables are served. That's all in the old-fashioned style, a very old style. There's now difference in Korea, and we keep the custom from the 19th century. Now, of course, the festives of the lunar calendar, we are also celebrating, first of all, Solnar. And we didn't know what is Owal Tama, never. But now, because of South Koreans influence, they are next to us. So big South Korean community in Almaty, around 3,000 people, and they are proposing us to celebrate together, and they organize also these festivals. The identity is maybe quite interesting about about Koreans in Central Asia or in Russia too. There is among us interrelation of 3 types of identity. It means national identity. Now every Korean is citizen of Kazakhstan or Uzbekistan or Russia. We all have different passports. So it is a national identity. There are no people without national citizenship. You know, in Soviet times, the Sakhalin Koreans, the majority of them, they didn't have citizenship. There were people without citizenship because they wanted to repatriate either to Japan or to South Korea. But Soviet government was against. That's why they decided to be without citizenship. Now all have citizenship. Sakhalin Koreans all have Russian citizenship. Ethnic identity that we all call we are Koreans. Yeah, that our ethnic region is Korean. It's very strong. You know, now in Kazakhstan there are 40% of the kids from ethnically mixed families, but they all kids say they are Koreans. The reason why? Because the status of Koryo Sara is very high among all, you know, not only minorities, but also among majorities, higher than Russian, higher than the titular nation, let's say Kazakh or Uzbek. To be Korean, it's quite good in Central Asia and in Russia. So, I mean, unofficial, yeah, unofficial. So, in diasporic identity, that's we are living more than 150 years apart from historical motherland, and we know until Olympic Games we knew nothing about South Korea, a few about North Korea, and we are very different. Not only with our co-ethnics in Korean Peninsula. Of course, we are very different compared to Korean minorities in Japan or United States. And so and we have self-appellation, and we have other ethnic name is Koryo Saram. Okay. Conclusion about Koreans in Central Asia and Russia is that unlike the immigrant ethnic groups, which have not decided to stay or to live or to repatriate, the diaspora decided to stay. So it means Koreans in Russia or in Central Asia, the majority decided to stay in the countries. Yeah. And diaspora remains until it identifies itself in anti-stasis, we and they, in which they are other surrounding ethnic groups as well, the mother ethnic nucleus. And yeah. And so Koryo Saram, we say we are neither Hanguk Saram, the South Koreans, or no Choson Saram, we are Koryo Saram. And finally, Koryo Saram are not less Korean than Koreans in Korean Peninsula or other countries. They are Koreans, but different than other Koreans. Thank you.
We will have some questions.
Yes.
What is the proportion of Korean to general population of Kazakhstan?
Yeah.
Soviet.
Yeah, that's very interesting questions. According to the last census of population 2009, we are just 0.07%. But when the people are asking me, how many you are? I say, we are 100,000. All the people are asking, so few. The reason why is it's not important 1.1 or 1%. It's a big difference, yeah. But the Koreans, actually not only in Kazakhstan, everywhere Korean they are living abroad, they are visible minority compared to other minorities. They are invisible. They are bigger in number. But every Korean in Kazakhstan is doing, something, and he is visible. That's why, in case of Kazakhstan, we are a very important minority. Why? Because every Korean is giving a job to other people. For example, the biggest of 10 biggest construction companies, 3 were owned by local Koreans. And the biggest company with 25,000 people, workers. Yeah? Or from top 10 banks, commercial banks, 3 are controlled by Koreans. From 5 biggest trade companies in home electronics, 4 of them are owned by local Koreans. It means every Korean gives job to many people. And in the election, it's not propaganda important. It's important what will sell the boss. The boss said, let's vote for this guy. And then the staff will vote for this guy. It means we will make them 5% of electorate. It's very important. It's very important. So, in case of Russia, In Russia, it's the same. They are now around 150,000 in Russia. It makes, 0.00. Is like in number is nothing, but they are also very visible. Yeah, it means if you look the parliaments in all republics, this Russia, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, and Kazakhstan, there are at least 2 Korean members of parliament, MPs. In every of these countries, in the government is 1 minister or vice minister. In every of these university countries, there are hundreds of Korean professors. In Kazakhstan, there are 100,000 Korean. There are 700 PhDs, professors, Koreans. They are very visible. That's why, okay, we are just 0.07%. Okay, yes, please. Oh. Who is it?
Thank you very much. Yeah, I've lived in Kazakhstan a little, so I know a little bit about it, but I'm interested in 2 things. Firstly, the religion of the Koreans there. I just wonder if you could talk a little bit about that. You talked about carrying on with Chuseok, etc., but is there a breakdown of denominations? And secondly, I think in your first slide you talked about some sort of forced integration into Kazakh society. Is there any attempt by the Kazakh government to integrate the Korean community more closely into Kazakh society?
Okay, thank you. The immigrants from Korea to Russian Far East, they were mostly Buddhist, of course. But in Russian Far East, a significant part of Koreans became Orthodox Christians. At least officially, it means because according to the law of Russian Empire, if you are obtaining the Russian citizenship, you should be Orthodox. And then Korean, they wrote, a registration and application that they joined to Russian Orthodox Church. Because if you are a Russian citizen, you can then pair mail. You get the parcel of 100 square meter parcel. So and the families in that time they are big. It means you can get fields for agriculture. Yeah, and then move deported to Central Asia. Of course, at that time, after 20s, late 20s, it was Soviet atheism, yeah, non-religious movement, and all Koreans, gave up to attend the Russian church and so on. Yeah, and all Soviet period, the Koreans were atheists. And then after the collapse of Soviet Union and from late Gorbachev, the first Korean missionary churches came to Central Asia, of course to Russia also. Even Munsamyeon, reunification Christian church, started activities among Koreans too. And because at that time we didn't have diplomatic relations, then the first Korean missionaries churches, they came from Canada and from United States to Kazakhstan. And then with the establishment, the diplomatic ties, we, like mushrooms after the rain, boom, like 50 churches just in my native town, but these churches were attended not only, the parishioners were not only Koreans, but also Russians and Kazakh people too. But established they were, of course, for Koreans, and the majority were Koreans. And attending the church, and reading the Bible, doesn't mean to be Christian. Yeah? And the same, you know, like with Islam. With Islam is worse. For example, in Soviet Union, in Kazakhstan, there were just 3 mosques. Now we have 4,000 mosques in every village, in all male, and Friday they'll go to the mosque to pray. But then go home and drink vodka. I don't believe. Yeah, this is just a ritual. To be in community means to be a member of community. Yeah, it means the majority of Koreans, they are atheists still. Second, what this Kazakhstan government is doing for integration of Koreans? You know, no need. Koreans are so integrated. Yeah, there is no need to integrate Koreans in Kazakhstan society or Uzbekistan society. We are now in second, third generation. We are citizens. We are more, you know, Kazakh than Kazakh in some sense. Yeah, more patriotic to Kazakhstan than you know, the opposition. There is no Korean in opposition. All opposition in all these Central Asian republics are titular nations. Because if you will be Russian in the opposition, you will have very difficult. And you know, Koreans, they don't do what is, you know, with no chance, but still. Yeah. For example, Koreans, there are no Koreans in the Soviet army, no chance. But there are so many Koreans in the militia, in the police still. But now there are some Koreans are in the, you know, in army too, because for Koreans to be general of army in Soviet army is no chance. But in the police, yeah, it was possible. And we have generals, Koreans in the Soviet police.
Thank you, Professor Kim, for your excellent presentation. My question is a follow-on from Professor Gomi's question. What is the relationship between the in the post-Soviet Central Asian republics? You mentioned Islam just a moment ago. What's the relationship between the Kzyl-Orda and Islam? Are there many that convert to Islam, or is this a very rare phenomenon?
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. You know, I'm serving almost 20 years as a vice president of Association of Koreans in Kazakhstan. It's a quite big and well organized, you know, institution or NGO. And we are looking in this topic, how the Koreans, and especially young Koreans, you know, converted to Islam. And for 1 year ago, 2 young Koreans, they came from Ushtobe, which is a very Korean, former Korean, you know, village, big, actually it's town. Yeah. And they went to association asking support for constructing a mosque. They wanted to construct a mosque, telling that there are so many social problems in the region. So many young people, they don't have any homes. They don't have. It means not about Koreans, about local Kazakh. Yeah, that many of them are, you know, dependent from drugs and alcohol and so on. And they wanted, you know, to make from mosque like a club. It means next to the mosque, they wanted to construct also like a small training center for sport and so on. Yeah, and there are just only 2 of them. I personally know only maybe half a dozen of Koreans who converted to Islam. Yeah, it means very few cases. Yeah, and actually in Uzbekistan is quite different, because in Uzbekistan you know, their traditional community, so-called mahala. Even you are living in a town. To live in a big town, you know, that means you are not in close relation in the neighborhood. Even, you know, you don't know who is the next door neighbor. You are living for 5 years in the apartment, you don't know him. But in the village, you know all people in the village. But the Koreans are 99% now the urban population. But in Tashkent, still in the Uzbek town, still they are divided in the in local communities, mahala. And you should be member of mahala. If you are out of mahala, then you have no socializing. Yeah, nobody will tell to you hello, how are you? And then if something happened, all people of mahala are helping. Yeah, they are celebrating together. So Koreans are attending mahalas. And sometimes they have also, of course, ritual. For example, we in Kazakhstan now, finishing every meal, we do like that. But this is just a ritual. All Koreans do that, because all our Kazakh friends do it. Yeah. But it doesn't mean that we are Muslims. It means that it's slightly different, and I think in Uzbekistan, in the future, but not in the next, but in the further future, some Koreans can become Muslims. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much indeed.